Hi there BookTube, it's Eleanor here and it's time for What I've Read. So I've been a bit different over the past few weeks because I've been on holiday and also I'm doing this fairy tale month of August. So I'm wrapping up the fairy tale retellings that I've been reading in batches of two. So two fairy tale princesses and all their retellings in one video, and often these don't fall on a Friday. However, I have about 3 or 4 books that I read before I started this and I haven't wrapped them up yet, so I thought this week I would do my usual Friday video and let you know what I've been reading. So let's first of all get into the 2 comics that I've read, and that is issues 6 and 7 of I Hate Fairyland by Scotty Young with Jean-Francois Beaulieu. I love this series. If you've watched my video for a while, you'll know that I absolutely adore this. It's quirky, it's funny, it's rude. It's just so much fun, and these were exactly as what I've come to expect from these comics. They were fun, they were rude. She is just such a wonderful character. If you haven't seen me talk about these before, the premise of the story is that there's a little girl, she wishes to go to Fairyland and she goes, but in order to leave she has to follow this little quest to get a key to exit Fairyland, but she's a bit stupid and she can't do it. And she doesn't manage to find her way out, and so ends up being sort of 30-year-old, 27-year-old, or, you know, in her late 20s, stuck in a kid's body. So she's a drinking, swearing, gun-toting, woman stuck in Fairyland trying to find her way out, and it's just hilarious. I really enjoyed this continuation of the story. This starts a new story arc. I'm really enjoying it. Gertrude is such a great anti-hero, and yeah, I really enjoyed them both. So I gave issue 6 5 stars and issue 7 4 stars. Next up, I picked up another Lucy Kinsley book. I recently read her book Relish and I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. And this is another of her books called French Milk. It's a visual biography, and this is of her trip to France. She spent 5 or 6 weeks with her mum in France when she was around 22, and this is a diary of what they got up to, and it includes sort of photos as well as little sketches and drawings, and I just love her work so much. I love how she uses food in her work. It makes me crave lots of yummy foods. So I love how she uses that, and I love discovering what things she's discovered. And in here she gives some really interesting ideas of places to visit as well if you've not been to France or to Paris before. So I thought that was really interesting. And I love with this how the title here, French Milk, really fits in with the major theme of the book, that Lucy Kinsley really loves French milk. The French have full fat milk that they use in everything, or a lot of things, and she loves this full fat milk in France, and she mentions it a lot in the book, and I just really loved that little nod to it, and it was a great title idea. I really enjoyed this, not quite as much as Relish, I think mainly because it was in black and white and I do prefer to have things in colour, but it was a really good story and I gave it 4 stars. Next up, with a couple of ladies, I buddy read Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen, and I listened to this one on audio. I really enjoyed the audiobook version. It was really well read, and I ended up giving this one 4 stars, and the reason I didn't give it 5 stars is because I got a little bit annoyed with Marianne in this book, and also at parts in the story there was so many different characters in there I got a bit confused, especially at the beginning. However, I did really enjoy this. It's the story of Eleanor and Marianne Dashwood, and it's a look at society as always with Jane Austen's work and the hunt for a husband. It was a really good story. The 2 sisters There's 3 sisters actually, but the 2 older sisters, Eleanor and Marianne, with their mother and younger sister, are moved into a small cottage. They're used to a much bigger home, but their father dies, and because there is no male heir, it is passed on to somebody else along the line, and so they're sort of kicked out of their house into this small house that is within their means to keep. And Marianne wears her heart on her sleeve and falls for someone who may be entirely unsuitable, and Eleanor is a much more steadfast character, and she is covering up perhaps some feelings she has for somebody, and it was just really well done, and I really enjoyed it, and I gave this one 4 stars. And excitingly, that only leaves me with one Jane Austen to go, and I will be reading that one next month, which is Love and Friendship. The next book that I picked up was a set of short stories, Dinosaurs on Other Planets by Danielle McLaughlin. I enjoyed this, but not as much as I was hoping to. Unfortunately, I didn't really connect with the characters as I was hoping. There was a couple in there that I really enjoyed though. I really enjoyed the first story, which was The Art of Foot Binding. I found that really interesting, and I also enjoyed one called Along the Heron-Studded River. Both of those were really good stories in this collection, but unfortunately as a collection it fell a bit flat for me, which was unfortunate, and so I ended up giving this one 3 stars. And then the final book that I completed recently is In a Dark Wood by Ruth Ware. I read this with a big group of ladies, and it was so much fun. Although we were meant to be reading 5 chapters a day, and I managed that for 3 days, and then I just couldn't hold myself and I wanted to find out what was going on. This is a thriller. Nora hasn't seen Claire, who was her childhood best friend, for over 10 years, and suddenly she receives an email invite from one of Claire's current friends inviting her to her hen do weekend, which is in a little cabin in Northumberland. She agrees to go, and there is, I think, 5 or 6 other girls there that make up the group, and it's a thriller of sorts. We're flashing back from at the start. She's in, I mean, this isn't a spoiler, this is literally in the first page. Nora's in hospital, something's happened. She is covered in blood, she's had an accident of some sort, and then we skip back and we follow her thought process as she tries to remember what's happened. So we sort of skip between her thoughts and going through what happened, and then skipping into the present where she's in hospital and what is going on there. I really enjoyed the beginning of this. It was so thrilling. It was really built up the tension really well. It had us all guessing who'd done it and what was going on and what had been done, and the ending just felt a bit predictable for me. It didn't feel as good as I was hoping. I didn't feel satisfied, which it was just so disappointing. I hate it when thrillers do that. They really build up the tension and then it turns out to be something that is a little bit So I ended up giving this one 3 stars, and it was okay, but definitely not one that I would push on people and say, oh, this is the best thriller I've ever read. So that's all the books that I've read recently that haven't been in part of my fairy tale retellings. Look out for one of those coming up soon. I'm just finishing off Cinderella, and then we'll be moving on to another one, and then I will wrap those up. So for the next few weeks there won't be a Friday video every Friday, but hopefully there'll be other videos coming as well. So anyway, I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye for now, BookTube.